know that we are absolutely full to the brim. Absolutely full to the brim of attendees. So what we have done is we have allowed this to be streamed on LinkedIn Live, YouTube, StreamYard, is it? Yard Stream or something like that. So there's loads of links. I put it on my Instagram as well. So if you've any colleagues that are trying to get on and can't get on because we're full up, we've got a full house, everybody. We've got about 14,000 people listening to this. So if you go onto my Instagram or LinkedIn, my Instagram is Chadwick Amanda or Amanda Chadwick Speaker. And if you go onto my LinkedIn, I think it's just Amanda Chadwick. Look out for the lady with the curly hair and glasses, not the one that stole somebody's husband. There is another Amanda Chadwick out there that did steal somebody's husband. I didn't. But you have find me on there for the links, and I put the links in there. Also, we've got the links on the CIPD HR-inform on LinkedIn as well. And always keep connected to those platforms because you'll get updated, and just so you don't miss out. But hello, everybody. Good morning. If you haven't met me before, my name is Amanda Chadwick. I'm a speaker, writer, presenter, expert in HR, employment law, health and safety, well-being. And today at the CIPD HR-inform, we're talking about navigating that employment law changes post-election. So I've got to remain unbiased when I deliver these webinars. But I would say to you, the last time Labour were in was 1997, when actually the Spice Girls were out. That's the last time. So we now have, and they were in a really good position to take over the government then, because the government was, everything was sort of like not bad. But now we've had COVID. We've had Brexit, we've had the cost of living crisis, we've got not well, the two major wars that we know about. There's loads more wars in the world, but we've got the war, as you know, in Israel, Palestine. We've got Ukraine. I'm trying to think, as I'm speaking to you, like zillion wars come into my head. We've got all that going on, and they're inheriting that. So, you know, I just wanted to share with you that everything that happens in society has an impact on employment law and what we do in HR. It always finds its way there. So welcome to this webinar today. What I'm going to ask you, first of all, while people are still logging on, I'm just biding for time here because but I'm Biden for time. Am I doing now more politics and American politics as well? Let's see if we can trump this. I'm doing puns today. So I'm going to ask you, what industry are you in? So let me ask you, and it's a regular question that we do ask. If you're not on the list, it's because we can't fit it all in, but put it in the comments box. And if you're asking me questions, I have 14,000 people on here that are asking me questions at the moment. You will get your questions answered. They may be answered throughout the slides, so don't worry. And also, the other thing I would say to you, on my LinkedIn, on my Instagrams, many people are asking me questions, and I'm getting thousands and thousands of questions asked. I apologize. I like to speak to everybody personally. I like to be, and I will get round to you. If I don't answer your question, contact the CIPD HR-inform. We'll get that question answered. If I'm not ignoring you on purpose, I try and say hi to everybody that speaks to me. I'm not a rude person, but I just want to say, if you do have a question, need it urgently answering, contact the CIPD HR-inform. We don't mind giving free advice at all, and I don't want you to think that I've ignored you. So that's another thing. And also, to stay in the loop, follow the CIPD HR-inform, follow Kroner, follow me, Amanda Chadwick, on Speaker, and Amanda Chadwick on Instagram, and follow LinkedIn as well with me on LinkedIn, and I'll keep you up to date. If there's like a quick change, I'll let you know as well, and we'll keep you updated. Right, okay, vote. Let me know what industry you're in. Only half of you have voted at the moment. As soon as I get a little bit higher, we'll move on to the next slide. And also to say to you that, you know, it's started now. It's a new government coming in. Let's see what changes they're going to bring in within those 100 days. We're going to talk about that now, and I hope you find it really useful today. And I really am going to help you today. Behind the scenes, we've got Amana, we've got Sharice, we've got Anna, we've got Luke Guilford behind the scenes today. And while I'm just going to close this in a second, but just to remind you who the CIPD HR-inform are. We are a platform. Okay, so there's a lot of people out there in HR that have been sort of taken over the role when they maybe were working in the office and they were good at admin, and they said, right, you can do the HR, you can do the health and safety. And this is so useful for businesses. It's so useful for those people that are learning, they're doing their CIPD levels. It is so useful for anybody that's running their own consultancy. And I know you're out there. I know you contact me on a LinkedIn. You know, this is so useful because it's trusted one. It's immediately changed. We have our own team of barristers and lawyers and content writers. Stacey, hands up to you. Hats off to you and Nicola's team. But we're there behind the scenes, keeping it updated for you. And so everything that you get on the platform is fresh and trusted. And if you don't know where to find it, you can ring us up. We can help you. So don't forget, that's how powerful our platform is. It helps you keep ahead of legislation, of HR, of employment law, and don't forget the training on there. Don't forget the salary benchmarking. Don't forget everything that we've got on there to help you. And international law as well. We're doing more international trading now. I'm going to hide that. I'm going to start this webinar now because I think you've waited long enough to hear about all these legislation changes. I'm just going to stop the slides for a second, restart them. Okay, and I just want to make sure that everything is being recorded. Yes, brilliant. Okay, so again, for those late arrivals, my name's Amanda Chadwick. I do speak rather quickly. I can't help that. It's because I'm excited. The detail contained within this web is based on GB and Northern Ireland employment legislation. If you're in the Republic of Ireland, Jersey, Guernsey, or the Isle of Man, you know, give us a call on the advice service to obtain the information relevant to your jurisdiction. And also, just a quickie, HR-inform is a one-stop shop for employment law information and guidance. We serve thousands and thousands of clients in different industries throughout the UK, and we've got it specific to you. So if you're in the care sector, governed by all those governing authorities, if you're in education, finance, safety, etc., we've got you covered. You're up to date. We've got that for you. And, you know, I'm 56 this week. It's my birthday this week. And I just want to say to you that in the years that I have, you know, since I could vote at 18, when my mum took me to the polling station and said, you know, you've got to vote, don't give up that vote. I voted every single year without fail. And what I will say to you is that, you know, I'm thinking about the best thing that ever happened was obviously equality and everything, and women rights. There's loads of things that are brilliant. One massive piece of legislation, working time regulation, but also the minimum wage. Labour are focusing on that. We're going to talk about that shortly. But don't forget, we have been around for over 80 years. We're helping people and employers. Today, what I'm going to cover is the 100 pledge. I'm going to talk about pay. I'm going to talk about contracts and policies. I'm going to talk about the enhancement of existing rights. I'm going to talk about that time off as well. We have got so much to get through. I hope you find this useful for you and that you can do something with this and implement it. So, well, that's what we're going to talk about, and equality. So let's have a look. The results are in. We knew, I think everybody knew, Labour would be elected as the new government. And actually, I never really knew much about Keir Starmer, but I did a little bit of Googling before I came on here today. He's a pescatarian. I don't know if that's an interesting fact for you. But also, he went and passed his 11 plus. Do you remember that? And got into grammar school because he passed his 11 plus. And his mum and dad, his mum was a nurse, his dad was a toolmaker. And you know, when we talk about the House of Commons and the House of Commons representing the common folk, I think when you've got a toolmaker and a person that's a nurse, we are talking about somebody who's representing the common folk. So I'm giving them the chance of making a difference. So Labour were elected as the new government. Labour were the party with the longest set of workplace reform promises, over 60 of them. Great for us in HRA. Here are the areas affected. So we're going to talk about those now. And just to remind you that that's a massive amount of changes. They did this last time, by the way, but we've got to talk about pay, contracts and policies. We're talking about enhancement of existing rights, time off, and equality. That's what we're going to cover today. So mark your calendar. So 100 days, they say, 100 days from now, that here is the date for your diaries. That's around 3.5 months from now. And why is it important? Labour have said they will introduce legislation on workplace reform to Parliament with 100 days of entering the government. Now, Parliament, I will say, opens on the 17th of July with the King's speech, so which is used to set out really the legislative agenda for the following year. So 25th of October is 100 days from then. So mark that on your calendar. Okay, remember it in your head, because it's a week, just under a week before Halloween. So it will remind you now, that is when you're thinking about those changes coming in 100 days from now. 25th of October 2004. Put it in your phone right now with an alarm on it to remind you of those changes. And when you're running a business, it's extremely hard to keep up to date. So let's realistically look at actually, when are we going to see those, those new changes? When are we realistically going to see that? So a 100-day pledge will apply to almost all HR promises, with actually very few exceptions. The new rights mean new policies, new contracts and procedures. So they will introduce legislation to Parliament within 100 days. So they aren't messing around here, by the way. They are setting themselves a stark objective here, but it would be pretty brave of them to set it if they didn't think they could achieve it. So to say that, they're going to have to pull the punches out here. The new government made the promise in its manifesto to introduce to Parliament a range of new legislation within its first 100 days in office, and to undertake a full and comprehensive consultation on the implementation of its New Deal. Now, however, this is just the start of the journey to become legally binding statute. Let's not forget that. There are a number of stages that must be passed through in each of the houses of Parliament, and there is the potential for delays throughout the issues as they're debated and negotiations over amendments take place. So there are many things that it intends to move quickly on, including, by the way, on Employment Rights Bill, removing the lower earnings limit on statutory sick pay and creating a single enforcement body. Now, where required, these will be developed alongside engagement with experts and stakeholders, including employers and trade unions. And they want to shout out to firms like us to ask us, the impact it has on people in HR, businesses around the UK, and the real people out there, the impact it has. Because the first question everybody's asking me is all about those 0-hour contracts. So the new government acknowledges that some areas of the New Deal will take longer to review and implement. It intends to carry out full and detailed consultation on its plans to move towards a single status of worker, and a review of parental leave will be conducted within its first year of government. So they've got a lot of work on the hands there. And do you know what that means for you? That you're going to have a lot of work on your hands as well. We're going to have busy times ahead, I promise you. We had that anyway, haven't we, for years now? So let's have a look. And then I'm going to ask you a poll. Which HR policies are affected? Let's have a look at these and let's break them down. And don't forget, we've just had a whole bundle of changes, didn't we? A whole bundle earlier on this year in April that came in. So let's have a look at that. And I know that you used the platform to have a look at those, didn't you? And to keep up to date. So let's have a look at these. So Labour pledges, it means lots of changes really to your written HR documentation. And so what we've done is we've looked and identified the policies that need a review when the laws are made. Okay, and don't forget, on the platform we'll automatically update them, so you can download it straight away and that it's current and up to date, replace what you've got. You may have some of these already, but we would certainly expect that you have a disciplinary, a sickness, whistleblowing and harassment policies, because they are fundamental staples of employment documentation. Now, I've been doing this in this job for over 30 years, representing tribunal years ago, don't do that anymore, but working as a speaker. But I want to say to you that I meet lots of businesses along my way, a lot of HR people, and it sometimes documents get out of date because we don't keep on top of them. But I know still today, I live in North Wales, many businesses that don't have the the correct disciplinary procedures in place, sickness procedures, never heard of a whistleblowing, and wouldn't know what a harassment policy was if it fell on top of them. So, keep an eye on that. You've got to keep up to date. Carers leave, by the way, is one of the new policies that employers have because it was only introduced in April this year. And I know a lot of other companies may have already had carers leave policies in place, but there are a couple on here that will be completely new. So bereavement leave, interestingly, Scotland and the transport industry actually I've been speaking about this compassionate leave, and it's part of their legislation, if you like. We here depend on it as a contractual right, so it's whether the company have something in place, and usually they have something for compassionate leave. So what we've got now is this is going to be completely new, bereavement leave. And so that's a new policy that's coming in, is bereavement leave, and it's going to be, so people in Scotland will be familiar with compassionate leave, but there will be something in place in your contract that mentions bereavement leave. I don't know how long for and what the requirements of that. We have so many different family setups. As I said, society dictates what we do in HR. So I could say my mum's second marriage, my brother that's half by somebody else, my mister from a sister from a mister, or something like that. So there's lots of different family setups now. So how do we manage that? That's what I'd like to know. When there's so many different family setups, we should have something, I believe, for bereavement leave and compassionate leave anyway. So that's one to look out for. Right to disconnect. You heard me talk about that. There are countries in Europe that have the right to disconnect. And I was saying earlier on to my colleagues that actually I'm fortunate enough to have lived in an era where there were just landlines and phone boxes and no mobile phones existed. And actually, I've had that disconnection. People couldn't ring you. And I was saying earlier on, there's good to mobiles and there's bad to mobiles, certainly affecting people's mental health, addiction, certainly affecting screen time. And maybe we don't know what it's doing to the young people's brains. We don't know anything about that. But what I do know, there are a positive side to them. Like when my sister-in-law Paula slipped down a gorge with a dog and had to be rescued by air ambulance. And the only reason she got rescued is because she had a mobile phone on her. So that is something to think about. There's positives, there's negatives. So when I talk about the right to disconnect, I talk about headers, I talk about mobile phone policies, social media policies. So that is something that they're talking about. Everybody has the right to give people the time of the day, especially their family. But so when you're getting emails at 9 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, and you feel like you have to reply, that's interfering with your personal life. There's no cutoff. When people are doing emails on the tube or on the bus, it's affecting their personal life. Your head is fuzzy with overwhelming stress because you're not getting a chance to break off from work. So right to disconnect, I absolutely agree with. We've then got, so that's quite new. Okay, so we've got bereavement, right to disconnect. I'm getting off on one now. I'm actually going on a rant. Employers tend to have rules on bereavement leave, but whatever they are, an entirely new policy will be needed anyway, because it's expected that a new procedure will be put in place when the new legal right for employees to take bereavement leave is introduced. And some employers have adopted a right to disconnect policy anyway, but it are going to be affected that you need to keep up to date with. Okay, now which contracts are affected? Now this slide here, woo, this is the one everybody's been asking me about. So what I do talk a lot. I'm going to ask you, do you think, oh actually I'm going to ask you, what legislation reform do you feel most prepared for? Is it leave? So we're talking about parental, carers, statutory bereavement. Are we talking about flexible? Right to disconnect? Are we talking about disciplinary and capability? What is capability? That's a question I get asked. Harassment, sickness, redundancy, or whistleblowing? Which one do you feel most unprepared for? Have a vote. When we get to a certain level, so you need to all vote, I'll cut it off and I'll give you the results. But which contracts are affected? All of your employee contracts will be affected. All of your worker contracts, 0-hour contracts. And for the first time ever, self-employed people will be entitled to a written contract. Will that make the employment statistics go up and look good on paper? I don't know. But let's have a look at this. For the first time ever, self-employed. So at the moment, you might have contract for services in place, and we need, clarity on whether somebody is definitely a 0-hour. But it's all about being on the ball and keeping on top of those contracts, which I've lectured you about for years and years and years, keeping an eye on that. So at the moment, let me tell you what people are voting. We've got 30% saying we're worried about a flexible working right to disconnect. And as I say that, I know what you're worried about. So each one of these, we will break down and do bite-sized webinars. And by the way, I'm going to start doing like mini podcasts further on down this year. So make sure you keep connected on LinkedIn, follow me on LinkedIn, on Instagram, and the CIPD HR-inform, because we're going to let you know when those little podcasts. So if something happens, we'll quickly do a podcast, let you know that change is happening, so you can keep up to date. So let's have a look. I'm going to close this now. 13% worried about whistleblowing. Okay, 15% sickness and redundancy, 18% disciplinary, capability, harassment, 31% flexible working, right to disconnect, 22% the leaves. I'm going to share that with you. Have a look at that for 1 second, and then we're going to go on to contracts. Okay, can you see that? Okay, I'm going to hide that now, okay, because I think I'll give you enough time to look at that and the statistics. We don't want to dwell. Okay, I'm going to take the slides off for a second, bring them back on just because they get stuck. I'll remind you that every time. So let's have a look at the contracts that are affected. Okay, so Labour are bringing in laws that mean you need to update your employee contracts of employment. You should be giving workers a contract to now since April 2020. That's not new, by the way. Worker agreement, worker contract. These will need an absolute complete review under Labour. And 0-hour contracts are also in the firing line, by the way. And for the first time ever, we have seen this self-employed changing as well. Now, if you're asking me about breaking it down for you at the moment, it's going to be very difficult because we won't know literally what they're going to do yet. We're just letting you know what's being targeted, so be aware of that and watch out for us with our newsreels and letting you know what's changing. So pay. Now, this is interesting. I think it was 1990. No, it wasn't 1998, wasn't it, when the minimum wage came in? I think I've spoken about this before. Can you believe that? And, I remember when I was on £1 an hour. I think I've told you that before as well. But, what they're talking about is the national minimum wage to take into account cost of living, one single rate focused on the care sector. And it's something I've said to you for ages, that we're seeing in society parenting starting earlier. We're seeing, people having children in their teenage years. And actually, my daughter, my eldest daughter, who's 33, she had her first child, working, by the way, worked throughout. She's worked since she was 16. She got pregnant at 16 and she was working, and when she had the baby, but still only, if you think about it, on a lower wage than somebody else doing the same job, but running a house, having a baby, not running a house at 16. So, thinking about this and taking into account the cost of living, if somebody is on their own, doesn't have a family like ours, and they're on their own at 16 with a child 17 or 18 or 19, a parent, and then, and they're trying to do best for themselves, and rent a house, etc. How can you do that on a really low minimum wage? So national minimum wage is to take into account that cost of living, but also one single rate to focus on the care sector. We've seen that brought down over the last few years anyway. Now we're going to just look at a few more of these. So focusing on the care sector. And my brain works before my mouth, or my mouth works before my brain. So it's a bit like my heart thinking before my head. But fair pay agreements and adult social care. Current national minimum wage rules on travel time for mobile workers will be enforced as well, and sleep in shift payment rules will be changed. So that's been, again, that's something that under the working time regulations people have spoken about for a long, long time. You know, as I mentioned, we don't have to have a specific timeline on any changes yet, but the manifesto contained a statement to say that one of the first things to be changed is the removal of the limitations on SSP, so statutory sick pay. So we expect to see the removal of the low in earnings limit criterion first. I think that's the first thing they will change, meaning that the SSP payments will be payable to even the lowest earners who may miss out now because they don't, on an average, £123 per week. But if they don't get that statutory sick pay, you know, even just not getting, so for some people, just losing £10 a week can really affect the household budget. And if anybody sat there looking at me, listen, I've been, I have worked my way up. You know, I've lived on £5 a day, living in a council flat when I was 17 and 18, and you know, so I just want to say to you that it's about. I know from that situation that if you're on the earning below the lower earnings limit, and that you were getting, you didn't qualify for that sick pay, it can really knock the boat and knock out all your finances, and it's hard to play catch up. So this is something they're looking at as well. So bear that in mind, and that's something to look out for. And then the calculations, etc., will need to be changed. So, and ethnicity and disability pay gap reports for large businesses. So that's another thing with pay that we're going to look at. So let's have a look at the contracts now. Ooh, and let's have a look at these exploitative, they say, 0-hour contracts. Now, in all the time I've been in this industry, I've only met a handful of people that have deliberately exploited people on 0-hour contracts. And when people have been desperate for work, they put them on a contract, guaranteed them no hours, and exploited them, and then just suddenly laid them off. You know, so let's have a look at this. Labour have made these plans that are going to affect big businesses in particular, and we are going to talk about these now. So first of all, the exploitative 0-hour contracts they're going to focus on. They're going to look at, the thing is, they're going to look at menopause as well. So the action plan will set out how they will support employees through the menopause, and it's going to be much like gender pay gap action plans. Now, actually, quite interestingly, you'll see on my LinkedIn and Instagram profile over the next couple of days. On Thursday, I'm in London actually on Tuesday, and I'm going to be in London all week, and I'm actually speaking at the Furniture Makers Conference on Thursday. So if you want to join me, I'm going to put something on my LinkedIn in the next couple of days to join me there. I'm talking about the menopause on that day, and there's lots of other speakers, but I'm specifically booked to speak about the menopause. So it's coincidental that this is now being spoken about. The action plan will set how they will support employees through the menopause, much like the gender pay gap, if you like, action plans. Labour will also publish guidance, including for small employers, on measures to consider relating to uniform and temperature. And you might not think that that plays a huge part, but there's certain fabrics that make people sweat cobs. So, when I talk about that the bus drivers where they had complaints actually from members of the public to say that they smelled, not all, I want to give you this as an example. This is an actual firm that had bus drivers, members of the public had complained, and the bus drivers, they had, rather than targeting people, they brought them in and said, look, we've had complaints. I just want to talk about this. What can we do? And the bus drivers said, you only give us 3 uniforms, 1 in the wash, 1 dry, 1 wear. And working on a bus, I don't know if you've ever worked on a bus, it's extremely hot in the summer months, but also, it's hot anyway when the heating's on. So 3 is not good enough because we don't do our washing till some of us till the end of the week. So so the firm said, like, okay, what we'll look at is the fabric, that'll help, but also we'll give you 5 uniforms, so you'll have 1 for every day of the week. And it worked. But that, I can tell you as a 56-year-old woman in a couple of days that it does affect you, the menopause, when it comes to sweating, to overheating, and to the fabrics that you wear. And it can make you paranoid. So, that makes sense in your risk assessment to look at that, really. And then flexible working and recording menopause-related leave and absence. Pay gap reporting as well. It's unclear what definitions would be used for ethnicity and disability pay gap. It's for this reason the current government previously rejected calls, really, to introduce mandatory ethnicity pay gap reporting. opted instead to use guidance really for voluntary reporting in April 2023. So they use that as a voluntary thing. But the 0-hour contracts, if you think about that, everybody's been speaking about them for a long time now and saying, keep threatening to take them away and say that they need to be changed. But the employment status that, currently, there are 3 statuses in the UK: employee, self-employed, or worker. But Labour proposes actually consulting on merging of the employee and also the worker. And then, when they're looking at self-employment, what they plan to do is to strengthen the rights and protections to help those self-employed individuals or workers thrive in good quality self-employment, including the right to a written contract, which, for example, would benefit freelancers. Action to tackle things like late payments. Now, there's one particular industry that I do work for, and they take maybe up to 6 months to pay you. Now, when you're running your business, for example, 6 months is not, just because you're a huge name, it's not acceptable. So now I just go, when they ask me to work, I just go, no, I'm not working for you because you're late in paying. So I don't work like that, So that, including the right to written contract as well for these self-employed individuals, which, for example, would benefit those freelancers. So if you remember on International HR Day, I spoke about how I envisage the future of the employment in the UK. And I think that we've got to this point where people are, we've seen it, they're getting where they want to work from home, they want to have that flexibility, they're looking at that work-life balance. And the pandemic had really a lot to do with that, because people realized they could work from home and enjoy their life. And obviously it has to be managed. So we're going to get more people now that are going to want those more fluid contracts and the control. They control how they work. So they're going to want, to do a little bit of work here, a little bit of work there, a little bit of work there, to make it work for themselves, but to be able to turn around and say, no, I don't want to work today. That's what we're going to see in the future. And so freelancers, it's going to benefit. It's an action to tackle those late payments I'm speaking about, and by extending health and safety as well, and blacklisting protections to self-employed workers. So that's what's going to happen there. And obviously duty to inform employees of trade union memberships as well, and that's obviously inherent in labour, and the right to disconnect too. So that's the contract side of it. Now, enhancement of existing rights. Now let's look at this. If you remember last time Labour were in, they said, you've got, at the moment, you've got 2 years to make a tribunal claim. They had it at 1 year. But it's going to be a busy time for you, because they're talking about making it from day one rights. So I work for you, you dismiss me. So it's about the way that you write things that's going to protect you. So when we look at day one rights here, day one rights, they're going to remove the unfair dismissal qualifying service. Okay, that is going to create loads of tribunals, loads and loads and loads. And what's going to happen is the tribunals are overrun as it is. So it's going to boil down to what you've got written, and that's what we relied on last time. But they're going to talk about removing that unfair dismissal qualifying service, more rights for certain groups, including pregnant workers. They're looking at redundancy, they're looking at TUPE, fire and rehire, and obviously unions as well. But they're going to remove the unfair dismissal qualifying service. They're going to look at parental leave and sick pay. The pregnant worker rights, let's touch on that, because they're going to make it unlawful for pregnant workers to be dismissed for 6 months after return from leave, except in specific circumstances. So I'm going to give you their exact words, okay? And this is our interpretation of this. Although this is not explicitly mentioned in the manifesto, it is that it will apply through pregnancy into maternity leave and then for 6 months after. So just bear that in mind. And when we talk about fire and rehire, we all know about the P&O case, but we also know how we can come together to combat people that treat people unfairly, which actually, yes, you did, P&O. You did, and the mariners and health and safety all came together because they knew it was wrong what they did to those staff. So they will strengthen the enforcement around it more so than what is coming in the statutory code of practice on the 18th of July. So they're going to look at more of strength around that. Unions, what they're going to do is simplify the process of union recognition as well. And they're going to merge employees and workers. Workers will get more rights. and merging employee and worker status is an exception to the 100-day pledge. Labour has admitted actually this will take longer. But what we know from the Good Work Plan, remember the Matthew Taylor Good Work Plan that came in around about the same time as the pandemic? Well, then in that case, you'll remember that people want stability. They want contracts. People want to be able to know that they're getting money every month to pay their bills. I don't know many people that like living on the edge. I don't like people. I love people. I don't know many people that turn around and go, actually, I don't know what I'm getting this month and I don't care. I don't know people like that. I know people that like to be able to pay the bills, to pay the rent, to pay the mortgage, to put food on the table. So people do want stability. That's what society dictates. We want to know where we are, and we want to know what because how can you plan? How can you get a mortgage? How can you it's harder to rent a property now. Even if you go in with the housing association or council, they check your credit rated. So it's something that actually that should be taught in schools, is that but when along with bills and paying bills and council tax, etc. But the fact is that it's harder to do that without stability and producing those pay slips. So you can see where they're coming from for enhancing those existing rights to make it better for people and their contracts. But it's very, very hard for us in HR and the employer. So now let's have a look at time off, okay? And I'm just going to do another poll here because we're going to talk about time off, and I hope that you're still finding this interesting. I'm going to ask you, do you think you and your organisation will be ready for the workplace reform coming in 100 days? Sounds like, so I don't know what that sounds like, 100 days. But do you think it's a quick on this? Yes, no, not sure. Okay. And then we're going to talk about time off. We're going to talk about flexible working default from day one, unless not reasonably feasible. We're going to talk about statutory bereavement leave. We're going to talk about potential for paid carers leave and review of parental leave. And everything on here, things like that need to be managed as far as I'm concerned. You need to manage them. You need to make sure you keep an eye on them and you have a good reporting system in place and you do manage it. Okay, so I need when I get to a certain point, I'm going to cut this poll off. I'm going to talk about this time off, and we're going to talk about that flexible working default from day one, unless not reasonably feasible, and the statutory bereavement leave. Okay, so the poll is in progress at the moment. When I get to a certain point, I'm going to just stop it. So please vote. So I've got 27% said yes, we're spot on. 28% said no, 45% said not sure yet, really. Okay, so let's have a look at this. A few more people vote for me and I'll cut it off and we'll show the results. Brilliant. I'm going to close that. I'm going to show it to you now. I'm going to share this with you. So I think you can see the results of that poll now. I haven't had time to look at the questions today, but we will get them answered and we will get them to you and throughout. So let's have a look. Let's hide that, okay? You could see that, couldn't you? I told you it's a quick poll anyway. I just wanted to make sure that you could see that. So let's have a look at this and this slide and discuss this slide as well. So right, time off. Right, flexible working looks like it's going to lose the request element to it. So remember, I've got the right to request. What they're saying is they want it as a default from day one, unless it's not reasonably feasible. In HR, some jobs you can't do. That's the phrase Labour are using, which is obviously different to the current rules, where there are 8 specific reasons on which you can base a flexible working refusal. There is no mention of a right to request in their manifesto, interestingly enough. Bereavement leave will become a legal right under Labour. So as mentioned earlier, lots of employers have some kind of policy, or at least they allow bereavement leave, but whatever your rules are, you'll need to review them again against the legal minimum rules when they come out. But then we've got that's carers leave. They will examine the benefits of paid carers leave. So where there is actually a shortage already for domiciliary care, shortage for carers, because not a big chunk of people lost their jobs in the pandemic. Yeah. So, and many people exited that industry. So it's, we've got a shortage of carers, we've got a shortage of domiciliary care, we've got no beds in the hospital, beds full up with the elderly with no carers packages. It's relying more on the general public to look after their own. So what's happening now is there is this need for this carers leave, but they will examine the benefits of it being paid. So it may become paid, it may not. If it does, that That will mean an update to all of your employees' statutory main terms, statement of main terms, both existing staff and new, and also to remind yourself that it would have to be managed as well, to keep an eye on that so people don't exploit it. But then also the review of parental leave is another exception to the 100-day pledge. Labour has admitted that this will take longer. So that's what we're looking for time off. So, again, visiting time off. Now, equality and harassment. Now, okay, we require employers to create and maintain workplaces and working conditions free from harassment and take all reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment. What I would hope when I walk in your company door, that I am not sexually harassed. I would hope that I'm not harassed at all. So remember what I say at the very beginning of employment: you don't know who you're taking on. You've got to make sure that those people, you remind yourself, they are a product of their environment. They're a product of where they worked before. They're products of the bad habits they've got inherited. They're a product of the bad health and safety. It's your responsibility on day one to have a full induction on day one, and to make sure that they sign to say they've read, they understood, they've had the training, you've got a copy of the training, you keep on top of that training to talk about everything from health and safety to harassment and equal opportunities, okay? That is very, very important in employment law and HR. It is your defense. So what they're saying are pretty strong words: create and maintain workplaces and working conditions free from harassment. We have a very diverse country, okay? So you have to make sure that it doesn't happen, harassment doesn't happen, full stop. Okay, it's your responsibility, end of. And I would say I absolutely agree with that. But you have vicarious liability for the actions of your staff. So you need to make sure that you educate them and you put your foot down and you tell them that it's zero harassment within the workplace. Be careful of banter. The Conservative sexual harassment plans are still set to come into force in October, but Labour wants to go further. Conservatives were saying you need to take reasonable steps to prevent sexual harassment. Labour will change that to all reasonable steps, so the bar will be higher. Third-party harassment liability will be coming back. So it will be your fault if the member of the public or a client, for example, harasses one of your employees, unless you take steps to ensure that this does not happen. And actually, we see this quite a lot. Third-party harassment, clients, customers, it shouldn't happen. People like one industry I feel so sorry for is education. Oh God, it makes me get really upset about it, because they get targeted on social media. It's a thankless job sometimes for what they do. They get targeted on social media. They get parents having a go at them, and they're just trying to do their job, and they have to do it alongside their policies and procedures. So, I think that this is a good thing, third-party harassment, but also requiring the menopause action plans, which I spoke about, and simplifying enforcement of equal pay. So what you will need to do to remain legally compliant are creating these new contracts, okay? You're going to need to do this. You're going to have to need to remain legally compliant, create new contracts, keep an eye on that. But remember, on our platform, we have all of those for you, so you can see just download the contracts that you want, update existing contracts. And when I'm thinking about the industries I feel sorry for, actually, straight away, there's other industries I've mentioned, but that just jumped to my head straight away. Create new contracts, update existing contracts. You need to create new policies, update existing policies, understand new amended procedures, train your managers to confidently manage those new rights. And don't forget, the CIPD HR-inform Pro will have all the documentation you need when you need it, ready for you to download and make it your own. Because don't forget, we have a lot of people out there that change the company branding on it. We allow you to do that. We don't mind you paying us to use all that and to be able to do that and make it your own, and save yourself the time. That's what it's all about. It's all about saving yourself the time and making sure that you're trusted and what you're using is trusted, rather than in the olden days when I was in HR, you're typing up and you didn't even have to, you had to rely on books, and you'd put policies together, or you'd copy somebody else's and you'd change it and you'd make it work, but then the law continually changed. So that's what you need to do to remain legal compliant. And what I'm going to do now is, just for a second, is I'm going to ask you, where do you currently go anyway to keep up to date with employment law changes? Do you use us? Do you Kroner, a government website, a friend in the industry, a solicitor legal team, or Google? Don't use the Google, please. Or, use it for information. It's brilliant. But be careful, make sure you're not Googling America. Make sure you're not Googling Australia or Ireland, or a Republic of Ireland, or Northern Ireland, or you're Googling. Make sure you get the right legislation that's applicable to you if you're using that. But I want you to remind yourself that we're here to help. And it's going to be one hell of a journey for us now in the next few months. It really is. We've been busy since before the pandemic. And what I haven't mentioned on here is mental health. And I want to remind you that any updates that are coming out are on our LinkedIn profiles: Kroner CIPD HR-inform, Amanda Chadwick, and then for me on Instagram, Chadwick Amanda or Amanda Chadwick Speaker. And I will keep you ahead of that. Now, what I'm going to do actually is I'm just going to show you where some of those policies are so you can see them. So when you're ready, you can have a look at the training that's available. You can have a look at the updates. So just hold fire for a second. I'm just going to share this with you, and we're going to have a look at actually at the where we can find this, because I think you need to know. So the timeline, have a look at the timeline. 4th of July. Luke, are you there? Because maybe we can talk about the timeline, bring you in now, actually. 4th of July. What I'd like you to do, if that's okay. Hi, you okay? I'd like you, if that's okay, I want you to show everybody on the platform where the training is, where the documents are, where the updates are, just so they know. And also, if anybody wants a demo of it, put it in the chat box. But we're going to ask you anyway after the demo. Look at the 4th of July, Labour wins the election. 17th of July, opening of Parliament. I don't think that Keir Starmer's going to have a holiday between now and then. By the 25th of October, introduce new laws to Parliament. Still to come, finalisation, implementation of new laws, changes to contracts and policies. That is what we're looking out for. Right, Luke? Okay. Let's have a look at your demo. I'm going to just
I'm going to pop the screen over to myself.
Let me,
brilliant.
Okay, right, I think have you got it?
Yep.
No, I'm going to do that. Okay, have you got it? Have you got the screen?
Yeah, 1 second. There we go. Should be there now, yeah.
Brilliant. Yes, I can see it. So yeah.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Luke.
Yes.
Say hello to her. Hi. I don't know what's happening with me today. I've got like 10 different personalities in me. Right. Okay. I'll let you get on with the demo to show everybody the legal resources
you, Amanda.
of forthcoming legislation. That is the most important bit there on the right. Look at that. Okay. I'll leave it to you.
Yes,
and I'll come back on.
Absolutely. Brilliant, guys. So most of you might have seen me a few times in some of the previous webinars that we've done with Amanda. But I'm a specialist here for the CIPD HR-inform Pro, and this is basically a one-stop shop where you can go get all your forthcoming legislation, get all your templates, get all your policies, and just keeping it all under one roof. And that's the most important part, and how we're going to give you as much time back as possible. Okay, so essentially it works really easy. You're going to get your logins, and this is going to be your homepage. And I'm just going to take you right to the bottom to show you kind of all the resources that we do have. Essential tools, one of the biggest parts of the platform. People are doing benchmarking, either going externally to recruiters a lot of the time, or you're actually doing that yourself manually through the likes of LinkedIn, Glassdoor, competitor websites. So this will be a massive area to show you guys, but we're not going to go into too much of it today because we're going to keep it to the topic. But that's something that you can put in your company details, and we'll give you a really competitive salary, saving you a bit of time. Right to the top, you're going to get in the middle, your next 4 boxes. We like to call it your weekly HR newspaper. This will be emailed to you guys once a week as well. But you get all your hot topics, latest employment law changes, really easy just to keep it all under one place. Top of the homepage, something I think Amanda was going into with forthcoming legislation. This is huge. It's telling you when the legislation is going to come out. You can even add it to your calendar if it decides to load. Give me 2 seconds. So you've got your employment law, the date to when that's going to happen. Click into here.
That's absolutely brilliant, that. That's so good. Having come from all those years ago, to have something remind you like that, it's honestly really helpful. Really helpful.
So many people I talk to, Amanda, HR professionals, even at events or demonstrations, don't actually have a tool that can keep it in one place. They're going and doing that manual work themselves.
Yeah.
If we come out of here again, main part now. So topics, templates, tools, resources, HR TV. This is where everything lives essentially. we'll go straight and start with topics. And Amanda, I've been obviously watching the webinar so far. So business principles is going to be a massive part of how we're going to help. And I'm just going to go and start with working time and away from work, what you mentioned.
Yeah.
Because this isn't just going to give you templates, it's going to give you best practice, what to do, how to implement it, and a lot of your questions can be answered through here. So it's really simple. Tab at the top, overview is your quick facts, any recent changes of employment law. You then got your in-depth area. But as you can see here, instead of pages and pages, you're getting titles to that exact part. I think we're going to go to bereavement leave just down here. Little introduction to what it is, some information on taking it a bit further. And once you've upskilled yourself, you're going to click the yellow button in the bottom, and then you're going to go to the template section. And remember, as Amanda said, all these changes coming with the, Labour coming into place, it's going to affect not just all the contracts, but policies, letters, everything. So our guarantee is we're going to provide you up-to-date, user-friendly templates, which you can just download, tweak it yourself, and then you're good to go. Anything you'd like to add to that, Amanda, for this area?
I think I was actually just, you caught me off guard there. I was looking at the questions. I was looking at the questions. Sorry, Lee.
I'll tell you what, I'm going to go into the bereavement leave policy because I know you were mentioning this as well.
Yeah.
But this is quite new to the platform, and you can kind of just get a read through and a feel for the wording, the language used as well.
See that? Look, bereavement leave. That's on there. That's so, like you said, that's new, and like you know, there should be something. I think most employers have got something in the contract. I know we've been writing something in there for years because it's reasonable. People will lose somebody. We accept that. You know, part of life is that they accept it. So anyway,
absolutely, we've got right to disconnect as well. I know you mentioned. But yeah, coming out from here as well, and I know you guys had the poll, 31% of you are going to be affected by flexible working. And you want to have, so again, same principle, you're coming into the topics area, going right down to family friendly. Just, I think it's still.
Well, you know, I've got 4 children, 6 grandchildren, so, you know.
Absolutely. So you come into flexible and hybrid working. And again, same principle, your most recent employment law updates right in front of you, your quick facts, your in-depth area with the drop downs, and then your templates.
Yeah, I think it's brilliant. Look at that, forms for flexible working requests. We'll change that. So we'll just put, you know, when Labour changes it, we'll change that to request. We'll just put flexible working form. So little things like that we tweak, which somebody in HR or somebody running a business might forget to do. So that little wording we'll tweak so it is compliant and trusted. There's a flow chart.
Always handy.
Brilliant. Ooh, it's handy. A flow chart. Who doesn't love a flow chart or a list?
Absolutely. And obviously, frequently asked questions. This is, again, you should find all the content that you need within the platform. But please use advice line as one of the features as well. Keep using that. It's how we keep these nice and fresh. And then also your related case law. Okay.
Yes.
Did you want to go into any more training, Amanda? Do you think that would be beneficial? Are you pretty happy with what we've gone through today?
I think it's pretty happy because I'm asking people now, actually, if it's okay. Can you poll, or do you want me to, who wants a demo? Like, would you like support in line? Would you like some guy with me?
Breaking up a little bit there, Amanda.
That, okay.
But
I think that, does that come up on your screen? Oh, am I? Has it come up on the screen? Has that come up on the screen?
Not.
Can you hear me?
Can hear you.
Right, I'm going to turn off my webcam for a second. Can you hear me now? Right, okay. Can you see the poll in front of you? Yeah, you can.
I can't see on ours.
Right, okay. Right, okay. Can you put the presenter back to me if that's okay?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah, put it back to me and the poll should come up actually.
There we go.
Okay, show my screen. Right, okay, I'm going to launch that. Okay. Never a dull moment, is there? The hottest day. It's been raining all blooming weekend. It's hot today. We've got webinars back to back. So it's just the way that it's sod's law, isn't it? But I've put the poll up there. I'm going to ask you, you know, if you just want to, you know, would you like some support guidance? I really hope this has helped you today. You know, I was going to wear red today actually, but I changed my mind at the last minute. I have to remain impartial, but I'm actually you know, we have to accept whichever who you voted, we have to accept the new government. Hopefully, remember everybody, we work in a united kingdom and work together to make our country like a business, so it's profitable, it works, you know, can trade everywhere. That's what we want. We want to target everything from, you know, drugs, criminals, and it all affects, even though I'm talking about that, it affects HR, it affects the workplace, education, everything, care affects the workplace. So now that Labour have won the election, there are significant changes to employment law and HR practices on the horizon. So the CIPD HR-inform Pro will be with you throughout, keeping you informed, training, what's to come, providing you with the knowledge, the training modules as well, the content that you need to implement these changes into your organisation. We're going to help you. We're going to be there as a helping hand, trusted and up to date. And you can trust it and use it. And we'll let you know if anything changes. That's what I'm going to do now is I'm going to show you another slide. Actually, I'm just going to close this for a second, and I'm going to show you another slide of which you can book if you want a demo. Right there, here and now, you can book it. Okay, so look at this. There, book a consultation with one of our specialists within book your 15-minute consultation, and you just click on that and it'll take you to the Calendly, is that Calendly or something? And you know, it will help you can book it there and then. So that's really good. So you can book it yourself within your diary and sort that out, and it can work for you. And I'm just looking at my notes now because somebody's, yeah, okay. So we've put that into the chat. So if you want to book your 15-minute consultation, it's on calendly.com events. That's there ready for you to book. I'll leave that on for a second. And just to say, you know, let's have our next few weeks of, you know, next couple of weeks of like nice summer, hopefully, and let's batten down the hatches, get ready for all those legislation changes, and let's move through those together. And I will be on that journey with you. I'll keep you updated. Don't forget to follow me on LinkedIn. Don't forget to follow the CIPD HR-inform, Corona Eye. And if you're on Instagram, please follow me on Chadwick Amanda and Amanda Chadwick Speaker. But I'll leave that on for a second. I'm going to come off that now. And just to say that we help everybody. And thank you very, very much for joining me today. My name is Amanda Chadwick. You can contact the CIPD HR-inform on 0333 207 5658, hr-inform.co.uk. Follow us. Thank you ever so much for listening to me today and for Luke joining me. I hope that you have a wonderful rest of the week. And, you know, I hope that we've really, really helped you. Thank you very, very much for joining me. And I'll speak to you again soon. I know that we're going to stay on for a couple of seconds now because we get loads of things come on. If you've got your last minute questions, put them in the box. We'll get to you and answer them. The recording and the slides will be sent to you with a link. But as I said, if ever in the future, Alana, hi, if ever in the future that you'll find it hard to get onto the GoToWebinar, we always post it on social media, links to YouTube, links to you know, streaming in other areas. And thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Damna. Sarah Jane. Thank you, Victoria. All the people saying thank you there. Uni, thank you. I hope you have a wonderful week. But don't forget, if you keep following us, you'll have the links on there if ever you miss out on the GoToWebinar. And I'll keep reminding you. I've not been social media savvy, but over the last 12 months I have. And we do work with the NHS. We have some templates. Julie Louise, thank you very, very much indeed. Caroline, Chantel, Tracy, and Sarah. Thank you very, very much indeed for joining us, and have a lovely day. Thank you, Luke. I'll see you again, everybody, and thank you, Stacey Cheadle, for help. And also always being there to write the content for these webinars, and Nicola and her team. Thank you very, very much, everybody. Okay, see you soon and have a wonderful week. Good luck. I'll see you in 100 days. Goodbye. Well, I'll see you before that. Goodbye, everybody. Goodbye from me, and goodbye from everybody at the CIPD HR-inform. Hope you have a wonderful week. Bye-bye.